as you can see that I've been adding notes onto the blog before the session, but do not print out, because in case I may update something, you might probably have then at that point printed out the old version, right? So wait till we finish, right? Yes, right. Otherwise you can see everything on the screen. So today we are going to discuss about the Attakilamathānuyoga, which is not a very new thing to all of you, right? Because you may have learned from other monks, speakers, maybe you may have watched some of the talks, but we are going to the bottom of this topic. That is the difference. Being careful about the literal, contextual meanings, we are going to learn what it is all about. First, we have to understand that the Buddha already, by this moment, had discussed the futile nature of the Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga, right? And we discussed that in a lot of explanations the other Monday. So Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga has basically happiness, I would say worldly happiness. So where did the Shakyamuni Buddha experience Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga? Was it during his time as an ascetic, or at which point did he experience Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga? Because he can't say this is hino, low, gammo, vulgar, potujjanico, the way of wordlings, anariyo, ignoble, anatta sanghito, unbeneficial, and this kind of stuff without experiencing it. He knew it by experience. So at which point did he experience Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga? Before renunciation, right? Got it? Before renunciation, he experienced Kama Sukhallikāna Yoga. Now, as you know that he was married to Yashodhara for 13 years. They didn't get a son or daughter for a long time. And he had been experiencing the harem, some of the ladies, but all in all, he understood that this did not lead to whatever the truth, whatever the wholesome nature that he was looking for at that point. So in nature, from happiness to happiness, Kama Sukha, because Buddha says life is with dukkha, but somebody should find out the greater happiness, right? Because he has a counter argument with some of the Jains. The Jains say, if you can see one of my notes, if you go here, what does the Buddha have to say about the Jains' following thought? Avaso Gotama sukhena sukham adigante tabbang dukkhena ko sukham adigante tabbang. The Jains believed happiness cannot be gained by happiness. You have to suffer. You have to do a lot of extreme practices, which Buddha did not believe. He said, he didn't say anything, but he didn't agree to that. So it's an interesting point. And then they ask, who is more happy? Is it Bimbisara or you? The Buddha said, the Buddha made an analogy. Can Bimbisara stay without sleeping in a certain posture for one night, one whole night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, 6 nights, 7 nights? He said, no, he can't. I can't stay like that. When I get into the samadhi, my samadhi is not expired, not like the ascetic samadhi that somebody can get through samatha bhavana. It can expire any time, right? But my samadhi is anantarika samadhi. Where do you find it? You find it somewhere, right? Where do you find Buddha's Samadhi? In the Ratana Sutta. Ratana Sutta, the very famous Ratana Sutta. How do you find it? Really? Yankinchi vittang idava hurangva saggesu ayang ratanam panetang neno samang atitatagatena idampi buddhi ratanam panetang. Kayang viragang amatam panetang edajjaga sakya muni samahito natena dhammena samattikinchi idampi dhamme ratanam panetang etina saccena suwatti hotum. You're going to see Ratana Sutta just to show you. All right. Yam Buddha setto parivanna I suching samadhi manang tarikanyamahu. If there is a samadhi that the Buddha talks about, that samadhi, what kind of a samadhi is that? That is unparalleled to the samatha meditation's expectations, rupa, arupa jhanas. Right? If you go to the fourth stanza here, it is not properly translated, I think. Yeah, here. But the translation is Yadajjaga Sakya Muni, sorry, should be the third one, right? Yeah, that pure concentration, the Supreme Buddha praise, is described as concentration without interruption. That concentration is without interruption. So those folks who attain samatha from samadhi from samatha, it is not, it is interrupted. Whenever an object comes to their mind, unnecessary object, it can go away. So the idea here is that Buddha could stay more than 7 days even. So then the Jains believed, okay, you are happier than Kim Bimbisara. All right, that's kind of a additional thing to learn. So Kama Sukha Likhanuyoga, we discuss about it. So the Buddha said that we should not cling to the practice of sensual desires, right? The clinging is the problem, right? And today we are going to talk about Attakilamathānuyoga, this part. Attakilamathānuyoga. Let's separate the words over here. What is Atta? Self. And then Kilamatha? You may have seen my notes too, I think. Kilamatha, weariness or fatigue, being tired. Anuyoga is practice. The practice of making oneself so much tired, so much fatigue, so much exhausted, right? So any practice that gives an individual, especially a spiritual practice, which gives so much pain, maybe so much tiredness, so much weariness, is called Attakilamathānuyoga, right? So do we have to learn something about Atta over here? Because we have a very famous Pali word called Anatta, right? Atta and Anatta. What does the Buddha say? Did the Buddha say we don't have a self? What did he say? We cannot take Atta as self, not self, right? But Atta exists. How does Atta exist? If Atta does not exist, then where is my pain? It is my pain. Where is it existing? Atta exists. So in Buddhism, any phenomenon, anything that you want to learn has to be learned from two truths, two perspectives. Never ever learn any truth from one perspective. What are those two perspectives? Anybody knows? Sammuti Satcha. Second is Paramatta Satcha. I don't know whether people in the back can see the screen. Can you? Can you see the screen? Zoom, huh? Yeah, that's a bit, yeah. It's a challenge, huh? Let me try. Oh, see what's going to happen over here. Yes. Yeah, that's a bit of challenging thing over here. Yeah, anyways. Sammuti Satcha and Paramatta Satcha. How do we understand these two with something? Let's say Atta. What is Sammuti Satcha with regard to Atta? The Buddha says Atta exists at the Sammuti Satcha level. Then the Buddha says to all of us, Atta Deepa Viharata. Make yourself an island. Right? And the Buddha said, you should be somebody who should spread loving kindness to you first. Atta. If you don't love yourself, you cannot do it to other people. There is Atta. What are the other places? Atta. There is one sutta in the canon, Attakara. In this sutta, one Brahmin comes to see the Buddha to blame him. He was trying to say, I don't believe in energy, I don't believe in anything, I don't believe in enthusiasm. Right? And then the Buddha said, see, how prepared are you today? You were prepared very much to blame me today, right? See, that means you prepared by yourself. You have enthusiasm, so much enthusiasm to blame me today. See how the Buddha took that. Right? So Atta exists at the Sammuti Satcha level. But Atta does not exist at the Paramatta Satcha level. Why is it? The Buddha says, there is no Atta but 5 aggregates. There are only 5 aggregates. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Viññāna. That is at the Paramatta Satcha level. Now without understanding these two, if somebody says, no, there is no Atta, that's what the Buddha said. Is it going to work? Is it truthful? That's false. Lack of understanding about the Dhamma. That happens to many. No, there's no Atta, no self, Anatta. That's a higher teaching in Buddhism. Basically, there is Atta. Right? So then here Atta means self. Now here we accept self. The Buddha also accepts self as self at the Sammuddhisacca level. So I would say normally teachings about individuals, people, locations, they all go under Sammuddhisacca. Normal things about people. Paribrajakas, kings, monks, temples, animals, they all go under Sammuddhisacca. They are also truthful. Teachings like Dhamma, higher teachings, I would say 5 aggregates, Noble Eightfold Path, dependent origination, they go under the Paramatta Satcha. There are 2 levels. We should not use one or the other because we have to use the both. There are certain level of understanding in the Dhamma. Alright, too much about it. But just want to say what is Atta, right? Atta means self. Kilamata means, once again, weariness or fatigue or being exhausted. And then Anuyoga means practice. Now this is very interesting. Let's find a background to get into this topic. Let me share with you a story. There was a monk called Sona, S-O-N, yeah? What is his name? Sona. Sona was a businessman and also a musician. He was very famous. Even King Bimbisara invited him to come over to the palace and then to play with his lute. So he became a monk. and he started practicing meditation. Like, he was a perfectionist. Music people are very perfectionist. You can't do this, you have to do like this is the level, that should be, right? Musicians. Okay, they go by notes, they go by chords, everything. That's good, that's an industry, right? You don't want to make mistakes. So, monk Sona thought that I have to be very hard on my meditation practice. Do at a certain time, do too much, meditate. Actually, it's not meditation, cultivation. Because we don't have the word called meditation actually in Buddhist teaching. It's called cultivating the wholesome thoughts. Meditation is a biblical word from Christianity. At least we can see cultivating the positive, I would say wholesome thoughts, alobha dosammo. So he got to a point that he expired from his practice of cultivating wholesome thoughts, alobha dosammo. That means dana, metta and panya. Then he went to see the Buddha, and then he said to the Buddha, Bhante, I think my practice of cultivation does not work for me. Then the Buddha asked him, let's take an example. And you were a musician and you had a lute. So how do you normally play the lute? I make this kind of scene to you now. If you play your lute too tight or too slack, what would happen to your expectation with that music? Then he said, if I play the instrument called lute too tight, that won't give the expectation. If I play the instrument called lute too slack, and it won't give the expectation too. Then the Buddha said, same thing applies to you. If you even do the cultivation of positive, what you call wholesome thoughts too much, you are over energetic. You can't survive in that practice, right? You can't survive if you do too much. Too energetic, I want to do meditation, I want to do this and that. Too excited, overwhelmed, you can't do that. You will not survive. You will do it, you won't survive. It's a waste of time. If you are too less in your energy, then you will get into teen and mitta, sloth and torpor. Right? They are one of the 5 hindrances. So both are, I would say, barriers to your practice. So do not practice the cultivation too much, and do not practice the cultivation too less. So they are barriers to you, they are hindrances to you. And then the Buddha asks, what about that you are not playing the lute too tight or too slack? Then you will get the proper music that you want. In the same way, if you are cultivating your wholesome thoughts, kusala thoughts, not too less, not too much, then you will be able to survive in your practice. We want to survive in the practice. We don't want to die, yeah? Because we are going to do something good. That's a good one. So in the same way, now we can find a similar background thing here, that in India, the reason was, up until certain centuries from the Brahmanism, Veda Brahmans, they were actually maintaining a God-centered philosophy. Everything has to come from the God. And first it was a pantheon, lot of gods, and then they nailed down to one God, right? And then they had different types of, I would say, developments of the God. But then there were people who didn't like the concept of God. So then what they thought? They thought liberation is not to be gained from the God, but by giving pain to the body. But by being hard on the body, you can find the liberation. This is the extreme of that practice. Not sleeping, not eating. So we're going to look at how did the Shakyamuni Buddha did when he was an ascetic. This is the extreme of that practice. Actually, it's a good practice, but they did too much, right? They gave a lot of pain to the body, right? I think this happens to our modern day people, right? When you get some money from a certain work and you're going to overdo that job and you're getting tired after a certain time, because you could have earned in a certain way, in a comfortable certain way, then you are happy, and your work is also giving you comfort, you are not getting frustrated, right? And what about that when you're loving somebody? It's good to love somebody as a lay person, right? But when you are loving too much, you get easily frustrated, because that person might not do the same thing what you expect, and you are suffering also. Going to make somebody happy, but you are suffering all the more, because you are doing that too much. Maybe the other person find it little irritating, right? This is the same idea, same idea that comes to the Attakilamathānuyoga. All right, let's begin by identifying the Shramana traditions. This is the name for the non-Brahmanic, anti-Brahmanist tradition, the Shramana traditions, which under which the Buddhism also becomes a part. Jainism, Buddhism, and all the other philosophies that were at the time of the Buddha, they came under. See, all these six teachings came under Shramana traditions. Ascetic practices were required in their teaching. First, we should understand the Shramana tradition: Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivaka. Why they were taken together? Because they have some similar teachings. Buddhism is different, but Jainism and Ajivaka's philosophy, they were very old philosophies. But Jains and Ajivakas, they were always were in trouble, because they had when you have a similar teaching, you become rivals. This happens everywhere. These are all Shramana traditions. The term Shramana refers to someone who works, toils, or exerts themselves for some higher spiritual purpose. But where is the toiling going actually to? Where is the exertion pointing toward? It is pointing towards to oneself. This is the issue. We can observe that more or less all of these Shramana traditions promote asceticism. Well, excluding Buddhism, I would say we have to take it a little differently, but there is little ascetic practices that we have to understand in a separate way. Okay, then I added this picture. You can see the main Shramana traditions here. The names Purana Kassapa, Makkali Gosala, Ajita Kesa Kambala, Pakuda Kachayana, Nigandanathaputta, Sanjay Bellatiputta. They were very famous Shramana teachers. Very famous, who had a lot of fans, who were very famous, reputed teachers. Buddha says in the Samanyapala Sutta in Digha Nikaya. Let's take a look at what were their main emphasis of their teaching. Number one, Purana Kassapa, amoralism. What does it mean? Amoralism. No sila at all. No sila at all. Denies any reward or punishment for either good or bad deed. In simple layman language, I would say, he said, if somebody is going to kill someone, it is also okay. If somebody is not to kill somebody, it's also okay. We call it amoralism. There's no sila at all. Good sila or bad sila, no sila is at all with his teaching. But it is anti-Brahmanist. People got attached to him because they don't believe a God. I think it's sometimes like in the modern day people who might sometimes not think about a lot of spiritual stuff. Maybe they might not care about it. We have to be careful. We have to warn them. Second, Makkali Gosala. He is the founder of Ajivakas. Niyativada. He said everything happens because of a past karma. I don't think even the Ajivakas believe that. Many Buddhists also like Makkali Gosala's philosophy. They always think everything happened to me because of the past. Then what is the purpose of virya? What is the purpose of my enthusiasm? What is the purpose of my energy? Yes, most of the things can happen from the past, but there are a lot of things we can change. Do not overestimate that, underestimate that too. It can change a lot of things. That is Buddhism. Buddha denied this idea. Buddha had 3 ideas about the karma, misconceptions about karma. Number 1, that we are getting rewards and punishments from a superior God. He said no. There's nobody watching over you. Second, we call it Issara-nimmanavada. Second, Niyati Sangatavada, this idea, Makkali Gosala's Ajivaka's idea, that everything happens, we are predetermined. Some people say, I don't care, my death is destined, my birth is destined. These are Buddhist. I'm asking, really? Are you a Buddhist? Yes, I'm a Buddhist. How do you come to this understanding? Oh, everybody says like that. Go check some of the suttas. Maybe this is heresy, anti-dhamma, adhamma. Buddha said he did not approve that. There are a lot of things that happen from the karma, previous karma, but lot of things that happen from your this life, your thinking, right? There's one sutta called Sivaka Sutta, I think. Sivaka Sutta says a lot of things. Lot of health problems come from your, I would say, inflammation of your phlegm, bile, and what's the other one? Phlegm, bile, semma, pitta, vata, air. Inflammation. They are not previous karma. People think it is previous karma. And yeah, but most of them can come from karma. Definitely we have to believe that, but not everything. And then ahetuka appacchevada, that means everything is random. That is also a misconception. So Niyativada is the total misconception to Buddhism, but people like it. What about even Buddhists like it? Why not then? Nah? Some misunderstood Buddhists like it. Not in the form of Ajivakas, but true because of some of the, I can say, misconstrued teachings, understanding. That is Makkali Gosala's Shramana philosophy, Niyativada. Third, Ajita Kesa Kambala, materialism. Live happily. When we die, everything will be annihilated. XYZ religions thing. I'm not going to say what religion is that. You know what it is. Right? That means when you die, everything is gone. It is not. Buddha says, until you attain Nibbana, you are continuing. A lot of people like that idea too, right? Because in today's world, many followers are part of a religion that has materialism, right? Sometimes somebody can think it is good, because when you think about your next life, you are so much worried about the next life, and you don't even spend good time in this life too. Maybe in a way it is good, but it is not Buddhist, right? Because when a monk is to say, right, you have millions of lives coming ahead, so you have to do a lot of good karma, right? Do more dana. Oh, really? So I have to do every day. So they are planning a lot about the future lives. So they are so much worried. They don't live here. They live in the future, right? Maybe it might work in the society, but it is not Buddhist, right? It may work, but it's not Buddhist. Because we can't understand it, because we have not developed our mind to that level. If we develop it, then we will understand. Then Pakuda Kachayana, Sassatavada, that means we are eternal, right? This is also another idea, eternalism, right? That means we have a soul that is continuing. We don't have a soul in Buddhism, right? We don't have the same person. A person dies, but he or she will become a different person, but that consciousness that is traversing from one life to the other life, traversing with lot of changes. If the consciousness is going through a lot of changes, you cannot say it was the same person. That's the thing. If you say soul, then it should be the same spirit, same person, same way, but it is not. Nigantanatha Buddha, I think this is the most outstanding teacher here, right? Restraint. He had a very extreme teaching about life. I think he is the one who did lots of ascetic practices. I shared with you some of them, I think a couple of days ago, last couple of sutta discussions. He said that one has to always be very careful. You can't walk without a broom, you can't drink water drawn from the lakes, and you should not, most of them, you should not wear clothes because you have attachment to them, right? Just because you wear clothes, do you have a lot of attachment to your clothes? Maybe some people. Some may have, right? But not everybody. This is just a piece of cloth, right? We know that the value of the cloth. But he said, no, you should not wear, so that you don't have any attachment, to everything. Many people liked it, because if a teacher brought up a philosophy based on sila, many people like it. Why is it? Because you see karma more than the sila in the society, right? We are going to discuss about it today. When any teacher talks about, but you have to do lots of sila, you can't do this. On the monk side, vinaya, and lay people side, precepts, you can get a lot of people on that subject, because it's discipline. It's I would say sila. But the Buddha says sila can be extreme, which will be a barrier to your next level. What is the next level of sila? Samadhi. You can't go to samadhi. You get stuck there. Right? You get stuck. But does it mean you have to give up your sila? No. You continue with sila, but then you have to understand, at this level I have to go to samadhi. And then finally you have to maintain the three of them. Sila, samadhi, panya. Maintain them at the same time. First you start from sila, then samadhi, panya, then maintain them. But some people, they start with sila, they do everything with sila, they end up in sila and die with sila. No samadhi, no panya. That's the problem. Nigandhanatha was extreme about the sila. Then the last one, Sanjay Bellatiputta, he is a very funny guy. He always escapes from the questions. When somebody asks, does the bhava exist? Maybe. Maybe not. So he always can evade. It is said that he was as slippery as an eel in the water, right? Eel, the animal. So Sanjay Bellatiputta. But even Sariputta Moggallana were followers of Sanjay Bellatiputta, Upatissa Kolita. That means he is not a normal person, because he was also a very popular person. So these teachers, they were samana people. They all espouse, they all encourage an idea of self-torture in a way. Some were encouraging it too much, some were encouraging little less. But they were all asking people, if you want to attain Nibbana, because Nibbana was a very famous topic at that time. It is not Buddhist, it is Hindu, Nirvana. If you want the Nibbana or Nirvana, you should give pain to yourself, right? What was the Buddha's idea about this pain? He said, it is not the body, it is your mind, and then certain aspects of your mind you could think about some of the practices, maybe a little ascetic. Any questions so far? All right. Let's go to the first one. What is tapa and Attakilamathānuyoga? What is tapa? Tapa is a word that you see in the text. What does tapa mean? Tapa means to burn. Tapa means to burn. Do we find tapa anywhere? The word T-A-P-O. Now I'm asking you to think about what you know about chanting, some of the suttas, some of the texts. Can you just think about what you know with tapo? Have you ever heard tapa? Who said that? Tapocha brahmacharyancha ariya satchana dassana nibbana satcha kiriya eta. Where is it? Mangala Sutta. See? Answers are just, one moment away. What does it say? The Buddha said there are 38 blessings, higher blessings, that we have to create. Do those blessings come to us naturally? They won't come to us naturally. You may go to a temple, ask reverend monks to bless you. They could be, something that you could ask. But what about those blessings, 38 blessings? They are not coming to you naturally. You have to create them. Let's talk a little bit about them. First blessing. What's the first blessing of the Mangala Sutta? First one. Asevanacha balana. Not being with the unwise people. Does this happen naturally to us? Or do we have to create it? We have to make it happen. Because we are always surrounded by papa mittas. Huh? Talking gossip, bad mouthing. This is normal. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong. I mean, if you take a look at them, right? I'm not saying that you should always talk Dhamma. It is not practical. But at least somebody who can guide you, who does not bring you to the destruction, who does not bring you to downfall, who does not destroy your spirituality. Somebody like that is very important. Kalyana mittas. Huh? So that means not being with the unwise people is a blessing. It doesn't happen ad hoc. You have to make it. Then, let's take that one. Tapocha brahmacharyancha. What does it mean? This is somewhere at the end of the sutta that you see this. Tapocha. What does tapo mean? T-A-P-O here. The same one. Tapo. Tapo means, you can see here, tapa is derived from the root tap, which means to heat, give out warmth, shine, burn. Tapa means warmth, heat, fire. Basically, in order to burn away. The Buddha says, burn the bad qualities, bad mental states. You're going to burn them. How are you going to burn? You set fire and then burn them? How are you going to burn your unwholesome states? How do we understand the kilesas? What do we say about the kilesas? Kilesas are always burning, right? That's what we heard. Right? There are 11 kilesas, they are always burning. Raga, dosa, moha. Burning. Always. People are burning with raga. People are burning with dosa. When somebody wants to attack somebody, burning inside. It's a struggle. Then Nibbana means cool down, extinguish that fire, blow out that fire. Right? That can't be even done by a fire brigade. Huh? They can't do that. It's such a very massive fire, spiritually massive fire, right? So tapa means to burn your bad mental states. That is a word. Buddha says it is a blessing because not many people can do it. When the fires are, I would say, when the fires are on, a lot of people cannot either extinguish or just bring another force of thing and then to make them under their control. So the Buddha said, tapa is a blessing. Not many people can do it. We have another word for this, penance. Before attaining enlightenment, or I would say Samma Sambuddhatva, the Buddha experimented the asceticism, self-mortification of the type found in the other Shramana traditions, Jainism. Actually, even the 5 ascetics did the same thing. They did the same Jain practices, which is known as tapa. But that tapa and the tapo in the Mangala Sutta are 2 different tapa. This tapa is just giving pain to the body. Buddha said, my tapa is not that tapa, not giving pain to the body. You have to burn your unwholesome mental states. That is what I say. Ascetic practices were not included in the Buddhist concept of the Noble Eightfold Path. We're going to discuss that after today. You will find there is no clue about such ascetic practices. The Buddha attributes the ascetic self-mortification style tapa practices to Jainism, Nigantas, in multiple Buddhist texts, including Majjhima Nikaya's Devadaha Sutta. 101. Where such practices annihilate past karmas and prevent new karmas from being created, which leads to the cycle of rebirths in samsara. What was the main idea of the Jains of their burning, their giving pain to the body? They said, now we are giving lot of pain to our body because we are paying back for the past karma. And then trying not to do new karma. Then we are going to Nibbana. Good idea? That's what they said. Then Buddha said, you are creating more karmas for future lives. Because when you give pain, you have dosa. When you have pain, you are angry. That creates dosa. These ancient Buddhist texts are significant because they assert the presence of Jain Brahmins and ascetics, as well as their karma doctrine and the reasons for their tapa practices in ancient times. You know, the Buddha had to go through a lot of bitter experiences from some people. One of the incidents was Sundari. Sundari was a lady. Actually, it was done by the Jains. Jains didn't like the Buddha, so they sent a lady to the temple, and then after a couple of months, they killed her and buried under the pond near the temple, and then spread that Buddha and monks killed her. And then people stopped giving dana, and then even Bhante Ananda asked, Bhante, can we just go to another city? And the Buddha said, what if the same thing happens to us in that city too? Let's be here. The truth will come out. And then Kim Bimbisara was able to find the truth, right? And so that means who did that? Jains. We call them Tirthakas. And even Chinchimanavika, you know, the Chinchimanavika, the lady who had a stack of wood and went to the Buddha, said, this is your child, so please accept me. And then there's a saying that the Sakka could understand, sense it. He came as a rat. He cut the what do you call, strings of that firewood, and then people saw that this is a fake pregnancy. All were done by the Jains, because Jains didn't like the Buddha, because they were very much popular at the time of the Buddha. After Buddha came in, they lost some, I would say, sponsorship from the people, right? But at the same time, they were trying not to kill anybody. But they were doing all that thing too on a side. So it's propaganda, and it happens in everywhere. All right, now we are going to see something very interesting about this particular topic, ascetic practices. The Buddha says that there are among some ascetics and Brahmins who speak thus and are of such opinion: whatever a particular person experiences, whether pleasant or painful, or neither pleasant nor painful, all this has its cause in what was previously done, past karma. For this reason, the elimination of previous deeds through penance and non-performing new deeds, same idea that we said, is tantamount to non-inflow in the future. That's the Jain's idea, and Ajivaka's idea too. From the non-flow in the future, that means they think no karmas will be coming up. There is destruction of deeds, no karma at all. From the destruction of deeds, there is destruction of pain. From the destruction of pain, there is destruction of feeling. From the destruction of feeling, all pain will become erased. That is how they say nirvana. That is the Jain's nirvana, very much ascetic. Now I want to show you the word tapa. Now this is in addition to Attakilamathānuyoga. We find this word because Buddha took this word from the Shramana traditions, the word tapa. Attakilamathānuyoga is a whole idea, bigger picture, that you give pain to yourself too much. But tapa, he gave a new interpretation, like to karma. What was the Hindu idea of karma? Karma is not Buddhist, right? What was the Hindu idea? Whatever we do creates karma. What is the Buddhist idea of karma? Kamma. That is similar to the idea, right? Whatever we do creates karma. What is Buddhist kamma? Really? You don't know? How is karma getting made? You must have done a lot of then other things, huh? Yeah, we are the one of karma. But I'm asking, how do we create our karma? Chetanaham bhikkave kammam vadami. Very simple. Volition is our karma. That means I might walk here, maybe without my knowledge, I might be stepping on some tiny creatures, I don't know. I am not creating karma. But for Hindus, they are creating karmas. They only look at the physical version. But the Buddha said, no, it's your volition. Because Buddhism talks about the mental state of the mind while you are doing anything. That means you do a lot of dana, you do very expensive dana, but your mental state is not high. You don't have alobha dosa moha. Are you creating a lot of good karmas? No. You create only to the level of the physical things you make. You have to create positive, wholesome states. So Buddhist karma is volition. Volition means you should have intention, you should have a mental understanding about what you are doing. Right? This is very clear in the law also, right? In the law they ask, did you really plan for this thing? If you said yes, they're going to give you a lot of punishments, premeditated. Same thing, right? So anyways, so in that way, Buddha gave new interpretations to the existing popular spiritual ideas. One is karma. Another word, nibbana. What is nibbana in Hinduism? Nirvana. What do they say? They say bonding with the Mahabrahma is the nibbana. When you die, you have to bond with him, Mahabrahma. They say we have two self, we call pratyagatma. That means, we have two souls, they say. Person's self, we call pratyagatma, and then the jagadatma means the Brahma self. At the dissolution of the body, these two souls become one. That is Nibbana. That is their Nibbana. We call Brahma Sahavyata, being, internalizing with the Brahma. Then the Buddha said, it is not Nibbana in my way. In my way, we have lots of fires, basically Raga Dosa Moha. You should be able to extinguish those fires permanently. And my Nibbana comes in two ways, in two states of mind. Buddhist Nibbana does not only happen at the time you attain Nibbana. It is not complete. Let's say now somebody of you attains Nibbana now, but till you die, you still have Panchakkhandha, right? You have sicknesses, you have other things. Only when you die, you attain the full Nibbana. We call it Khandha Nibbana. The first one call it Kilesa Nibbana. So Nibbana has two timings rather than two steps. So Kilesa Nibbana, of course you have to be alive, right? We call Kilesa Nibbana. So you go to Nibbana through the eradication of your kilesas, and then you will, I would say, live for another couple of years or maybe. Till that time, you still live with the Panchakkhandha. So you have pain, you have you may not suffer, but because you have the body, you may have suffering. A lot of people think once I attain Nibbana, I have no problem. You go check the Bojjhangas. The Buddha approaches Mahakassapa, Arhan Mahakassapa, asking his, the nature of the sickness. He said, Kachite Kassapa Kamaniya, Kachi Yapaniya, Kachi Dukkha Vedana. Bhante Kassapa, can you bear? Can you tolerate? He said, no, I can't tolerate. It's too much pain. Arhan Mahakassapa. Because he still carries the body. He can feel it. But there's one thing that is not happening. He is not taking that pain as himself. But we take it, oh, my body. Why it happened to me? Why? But they think, why not? Why not me? But we think, why me? That's the difference. When you have a sickness, when you have a pain, you have cancer, why me? Why other people are all good? But they think, why not me? I'm also part of this cohort, right? That's the difference. So Arahants take it differently, but still they can feel the pain, right? Not the mental pain, physical pain. In the same way, Nibbana, the Buddha said differently. So Even the tapo, the word tapa, to the Indian Shramana traditions, they said tapa means burn, give lots of pain to the body. The bigger picture of tapa is Attakilamathānuyoga, but the Buddha said it is different. Let's take a look. The evolution of the tapa in later Buddhist texts. Elsewhere in mainstream Buddhism, the meaning of the word tapa or tapo changed over time, so that it no longer referred to ascetic penance, but rather to meditative and spiritual practices. Interesting. That's the Buddha's way. Buddha said, I don't take it as a ascetic practice to give pain to the body. I take it as a development of the meditation, maybe cultivation of the mind. Now I quoted some examples. One sutta, Kasi Bharadvaja Sutta, Saddha Bijang Tapo Vutti. Remember the incident over here? The Buddha went to a certain village and he met with a farmer. His name was Kasi Bharadvaja. He said to the Buddha, I'm not giving you any food, no pindapata here. He said, you go do a job and find your food. Then the Buddha said, I also have a paddy field like you. Really? Where is it? I don't see you have a paddy field. You are not a farmer. Then the Buddha said, see, Saddha Bijang, I have crops. My crops are Saddha. See, it's a metaphor. Language-wise, a metaphor. And then I also have rain like you expecting for your paddy field cultivation. That is tapa. That means when you have penance, when you try to reduce your bad mental states, it is like a rain, right? It is a metaphor. So he used tapa as a metaphor here. Tapa means burning, I would say, reducing your bad mental states. Then Dhammapada 183 verse says, Tapo Sukho, penance or tapa is happiness. Then Tapocha Brahmacharyang, the one we just discussed, tapa is the highest way of living over here. See the final one. Khanti Paramang Tapo Titikha, patience and forgiveness make the highest asceticism. Very interesting. Now just take a look at your personal life. Rather than you give pain to you, if you have patience and forgiveness, you are not struggling in your life. Otherwise, you struggle every moment. Things that happen to you, things that you imagine that will be happening to you in the future, insecurities. The Buddha said, Khanti Paramang Tapo Titikka, the highest, in my own way, highest ascetic practices are none other than patience, Khanti, and Tapo. In here I would say, Titikka, that means forgiveness. Alright, that is 184 verse. Alright, now a lot of things to discuss, but I'm going to nail down to very important stuff because of the time. Now we are going to look at how did the Prince Siddhartha, I would say ascetic Siddhartha, practice Attakilamathānuyoga or tapa practices in the Shramana way, not in his own way, because before he became the Buddha. It's a long description. Let's read a couple of them. The sutta is Mahasihanada Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 12. Let's see. He was talking to Arahant Sariputta. Such was my asceticism, Sariputta, that I went naked. He was a naked ascetic. Right? That means he was a kind of Jain at that point. Rejecting conventions. Convention does not mean that you have to be naked, right? Convention means you have to be dressed. But I went against the convention. Licking my hands. Not coming when asked. I'm not easily approached by anybody. Not stopping when asked. I did not accept food brought or food specially made or an invitation to a meal. I received nothing from a pot, from a bowl, across a threshold, across a stick, across a pestle, from two eating together, from a pregnant woman, from a woman in the midst of men, from where food was advertised to be distributed, or from where a dog was waiting. When a dog was waiting, I didn't take food, I gave the food to him. From where flies were bustling, I accepted no fish or meat, no liquor, no wine, no fermented brew. I kept to one. Actually, this time he was slowly, gradually going to higher practices of asceticism. Now still he was eating a little bit, right? I kept to one house, two house, and then 7 houses, right? And then even 7 morsels, that means amount of food. In this way, the list keeps going, right? And then when we see the second para, and he found out at a certain point, because he didn't take showers for many years, he had lots of dirt. It's like flaky stuff. You see, he was alluding to a tree. This is the name of that tree. Tinduka tree. Tinduka tree has lots of flesh. In the same way, he had lots of dust, dirt over many years. But the funny thing is that it never occurred to me, oh, let me rub this dust and dirt off with my hand. I let it be there. I want to give pain to my body. So I had lots of dust and dirt, just like the Tinduka tree. Tinduka tree should have been a very big one, because over many years he didn't take a shower. Oh, I had no intention to say, let another rub this dust and dirt off with this hand. Such was my coarseness, Attakilamathānuyoga. Not even that. Let's go to the final one. Because of eating so little, now at that point he doesn't eat anything now. By the time we talk about the last para, because of eating so little, my limbs became like the jointed segments of vine stems or bamboo stems. Right? Because of eating so little, my backside became like a camel's hoof. Because of eating so little, the projections of my spine stood forth like corded beds. So the list keeps going and going. I'm going to quote something halfway. Because of eating so little, my belly skin adhered to my backbone. I encountered my belly skin because of eating so little, so and so forth. It is said that when I wanted to touch my belly, I touched almost my back. Now see how emaciated was he in his practices. Then he understood, this is not going to work for me, right? I can't find happiness through pain. Actually, it is true. We can't find happiness through pain. If you want happiness, find it with moderate happiness, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to find spiritual happiness. You might find other types of, let's say, hardworking people, right? They might find some money. But now the concept is not hardworking, smart working. You won't get lots of money by hard working, only for certain jobs. You have to be smart. Be very smart. Maybe you might be in a small cubicle, but you make lots of money. You are smart. You know what to do. That's for the material perspective. But the idea here is that happiness is not attainable by pain. Then, let's go to the third point. Is it true that the Buddha said that all ascetic practices should be avoided? Vajjiya Mahita Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 10.94. Actually, Buddha said no. He does not reject all the ascetic practices. Actually, what he rejects is too much ascetic practices, right? Too much ascetic practices. Now, if you can read, I'm not going to read everything. He says somewhere at the end here, if when an asceticism is pursued, unskillful qualities grow and skillful qualities wane, then I tell you that sort of ascetic practices are not to be pursued. Right? When you give lots of pain to your body, you will be mostly ended up with lot of anger, hatred. Right? This is what happened to even the 5 ascetics, Panchavagya bhikkhus. Does this happen to our devotees too? Some devotees, yes. When they do lot of sila, they always take it as a irritation. When somebody does something, oh no, this is not how you sit down. That monk told, I can show you from the book. Right? Why is it? Too much bothered with the sila. Did the Buddha say to us, this is the way you have to sit down? Where is it said? There's no place. But we respect wherever you go. Wherever you go, you have to go by the convention. But there is no such thing. You should not be very bothered by things like that, because Buddha always appreciated everyone's freedom, everyone's happiness, right? Even when somebody comes to learn a Dhamma talk, he saw that he did not eat food. He hadn't had his lunch or dinner. Then he asked monks, bring him to the kitchen, give him some food. He was like that, very humanist, human-centered person. Not the person who was created by the later people, the statue cultures and all that. He was a very basic human. But he has an extraordinary character. That is what we have to find out here. So the Buddha says, if any ascetic practice creates akusalas, that is a problem. So you should never do that. All right. Number 5. Why did monk Devadatta advocate or advise for more ascetic practices? What did he do? Who is Devadatta? Devadatta was his Buddha's cousin. In other words, Princess Yashodhara's, sorry, you might be wondering who is Prince Yashodhara. Princess Yashodhara's brother, right? What happened to him? He wanted to become the Buddha, right? He didn't know that this is something that you have to earn from your sansaric life. Then he tried, actually this is the thing that he mostly tried. He said to the Buddha that I am suggesting 5 things that you should grant permission, that every monk then can practice. What were they? Have you ever heard these 5 before? Some of you, okay. That monks should spend their lives in the forest. Entering a town should be an evil. That means forest monks, they have to live in the forest. They can't even come out from the forest to make pindapata, right? Aranyakas, number 2. There was not the idea of forest monks at that time. All monks are forest-based. They come to the city, they go back. So there are no forest monks at that time. But if the monks are trying to live in the forest, they should not come out of the forest. They should survive in the forest. Second, monks should live only on what they had received through pindapata. Receiving food requested should be an evil. They cannot accept anything other than pindapata. Right? At that time, monks went pindapata in the evening too, right? You know that? A lot of suttas say, when that incident happened, Buddha denied going for pindapata in the evening, and he went to give a Dhamma talk. Now we understand, going for pindapata in the evening happened. But there were some issues with that thing, because in the first 20 years, all of the arahants, they were mostly arahants, so they didn't mind about it. But then when the unenlightened monks were many, they had some issues. Sometimes they went pindapata from the back door, so the people thought this is a ghost, so they threw some water, the monks, right? And there were no proper roads, even road, they fell down on the road. And some were bitten by snakes, venomous snakes. So Buddha said better to stay in the temple, and then you can use it to meditate, cultivate positive things. That is how it was taught. It is good too, interim fasting. It's good for the body, right? Anyway, so he said every monk has to go for pindapata. You cannot, the flip side is you cannot stay in a temple, eat food brought by the devotees. What was the first incident that made Buddha to say monks can accept food in the temple? There was a monk, when he was going on pindapata, a lady was followed by him. He can't see her. This was a past karma. He done something wrong to her. So she was following her. So devotees can see, oh, what is this? And then a lot of people started blaming that monk. He can't see, because that lady wanted to disturb him, actually. And then this was, known to the king, I think King Kosala, I guess. So King Kosala said, ask that monk not to go for pindapata because people are having some issues. I will send food to the temple. That is how monks started eating in the temple, devotees bring dana. Otherwise, monks started going for pindapata. Interesting, huh? Interesting incident. Past karmas come after, even you become a monk. Very dangerous. You can't, you can't run out of them. 3. Monks should wear only clothes made of rags from the dust heaps, pansakula. That means clothings that were used to cover the dead bodies at that time. Monks cannot use other one. Monks should dwell at the foot of a tree, rukkamolika, entering a dwelling. That means monks cannot stay in a shelter like a avasa, kuti or something. Finally, they should not eat fish or meat. Doing so should be an evil. Some sources say milk and butter, but mostly it is given as fish and meat. What did the Buddha say? When these were presented by Devadatta, what the Buddha said? I am not going to approve anything here. Let any monk who want to practice, let them practice. Let any monk who doesn't want to practice, they may not practice. Right? Because he understood this is an issue. But his real intention was to make a problem. Then he made some space for that. What he did, then he could persuade some other 500 monks and brought them to Gaya Caesar. 500 monks. He brought 500 monks saying that I am the one who has a lot of Vinaya, not the Buddha. See? He brought 500 monks to Vesali. Alright, so that means the Buddha did not appreciate the ascetic practices even after he became the Buddha. Because he understood some monks need Vinaya, lay people need some Sila, but that Sila or that Vinaya should not exceed Samadhi level. Because if you cannot come to Samadhi, what is the price of practicing Sila? It is like Jain Sila. It is like the Sila of the Ajivakas. You have always prohibitions. Oh no, don't do this, don't do this. You can only do that. So you are always juggling with these two, boundaries. Right? Buddha said you need to make a certain boundary because you want to go to Samadhi and then to Panya. Alright, so I think I discussed that Jain's idea of happiness, not happiness to happiness, but pain to happiness. And there are other ascetic practices too that you can see, you can read this one too. Dutangas, have you ever heard this word? Dutanga. Actually, Dutanga is not, they are not mentioned in the canon. They were mentioned in the book called Visuddhimagga. What is Visuddhimagga? Visuddhimagga, what is it? Have you ever seen this book anywhere? In the huh? Yeah, the path of purification. Yeah, but have you ever studied? Most of them, I think probably you may have seen this book. How do we understand this book? This was written by monk Buddhaghosa, a South Indian monk in Sri Lanka. Actually, in Sri Lanka, the Abhayagiri tradition, Mahavihara Abhayagiri tradition was very, very popular. So Mahavihara monks wanted to write a similar book compared to Vimuttimagga, path of purification in the Mahayana way, Sanskrit way. So they asked a South Indian monk, Buddhadatta. He could not write it because then he went back. Then Buddhaghosa came in, he wrote it. But my suggestion is that if you want to learn Dhamma initially, you have to learn from the early suttas. Do not learn from Visuddhimagga in the first place. That's a problem. Do not learn from Abhidhamma first. More to the early Buddhist suttas like Majjhima Nikaya, may perhaps Samyutta Anguttara, mostly Majjhima Nikaya, because Majjhima Nikaya has everything, most of the philosophical things. Because now these Dutangas, I would say 13 Dutangas, they were written in the Visuddhimagga. And Visuddhimagga has lots of emphasis about different things. I mean, they are good in a way, but there are some doctrinal conflicts compared to the early suttas. You want to learn Buddhism, right? I think everybody wants to learn true Buddhism, real Buddhism. True Buddhism. Where is that true Buddhism? Pure Buddhism. Then go to the suttas, especially Majjhima Nikaya. So, but I wanted to show you these Dhutangas were very extreme practices that some monks. I think now we have come to the very interesting part of our conversation. Perhaps we can end our discussion with this. Does the practice of Attakilamathānuyoga lead to the Silabbata Paramasa, the distorted grasp of rules and vows? Very interesting question. I think this is very important because you all want to at least attain Sotapanna. What does Silabbata Paramasa mean? Silabbata. You can say Sila. The other one? Vata. Okay, what is Sila? What is Vata? Sila? Sila means morality, or I would say ethics or virtue, ethical conduct, right? Vata? Vata means right, say right. Sila here means ethical conduct. Now, the Buddha says, in order for someone to attain Sotapanna, just as the Sakkaya Ditthi and Vicikicca, Silabbata Paramasa matters to us. Because Silabbata Paramasa means if you are practicing extreme Sila, maybe Pancha Sila, maybe other Sila, maybe other everything. Or Vata means different rights. At that time, some people thought, I want to behave like a dog. Kukkura Vata. Then the Buddha asked from them, what are your plans? Because I think that by behaving like a dog, I can attain some liberations. Then somebody asked from the Buddha, what will happen to him? If you were like a dog, if you were talking like a dog, if you were behaving like a dog, then you will be in the future. So, because that is what you know in this life, right? Some people have this issue. If you want to be a human in next life, be with humans. Love the animals, but be with humans. Because if any animal comes to your mind just before you die, what will happen to you? Some people even can't come to the temple. Bhante, I have to walk the dog, to bring there so many things. It is good. Loving the animals is good. But never ever make it a trouble to your spiritual practice. Right? Don't make it as an extreme practice. The Buddha says, if somebody wants to become a human, you have to be with human. You have to love human, help human, grateful towards them. Then always humans are in your mind. Good humans and all that. Right? Kalyana Mittas. So some people thought, I want to behave like a goat. I want to behave like a cow. I want to behave like a dog. There's a sutta called Kukkura Vatiya Sutta. Then the Buddha said, if you behave like a dog, you will become a dog. Behave like a goat, you will become a goat. If you behave like a cow, you will become a cow. Right? That is an extreme way of thing. Silabbata Paramasa means you have taken the Sila and Vata extremely. Never ever take Sila and Vata extremely. Let's take a look. Sila must have a purpose. I think this is something I'm going to discuss in the next couple of weeks. You should have a purpose of Sila. How do we understand it? I'm telling you, your Sila should have a purpose. Why do you practice Sila? I'm asking from somebody. For peace. For others? Why do you practice Sila? Personal? Mental cultivation. Now, in order to answer that question, I want you to see the bottom here. According to the Ratavinita Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 24, the purification of Sila is not Nibbana. It is not Nibbana. And it should not be adhered for a reason. Now, there is an example. This example was given by Punna Mantaniputta, Arhan Punna Mantaniputta, he says, now suppose King Bimbisara wants to travel from Kosala to Saketa, another city, far away, from Kosala to Saketa. He has to take 7 horse carriages because it's far away, one horse cannot ride that far. So he now enters into the first horse carriage. So that horse carriage takes him to a certain far distance. And then he gets off from that horse carriage. Now he is then getting into the second horse carriage, and the third one, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. But he is entering into Saketa city from the 7th horse carriage. Then this, what you call simile, is then attributed to the Dhamma here. See, purification of ethics, Sila, when you look for your purification through Sila, actually when you practice Sila, you are looking for purification only for the sake of purification of mind. As you said, cultivating the mind. Cultivating the mind is not Nibbana itself. You have to go on a long way actually after that. Purification of mind, which you get through purification of Sila, is only for the sake of purification of view, Ditti. Ditti Visuddhi. Then, even Ditti Visuddhi, purification of view is also not enough. Purification of view is only for the sake of purification through overcoming doubts. That helps us to clear out our doubts. Vichikicca. We call Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi in Dhamma. It is also not enough to go to Nibbana. Now just imagine those horse carriages, 7 horse carriages. Now we are in the middle. Purification through overcoming doubt is only for the sake of purification of knowledge and vision of the variety of path. And purification of knowledge and vision of the variety of path is only for the sake of purification of knowledge and vision of the practice. Now don't think this vision, this knowledge is your knowledge, what you call the book knowledge, subject knowledge. This is the knowledge, what you call jnana, that means in Dhamma jnana. Purification of knowledge and vision of the practice is only for the sake of purification of knowledge and vision. It's also not enough. Now imagine you are in the 5th or 6th horse carriage. Purification of knowledge and vision is only for the sake of extinguishment by not grasping. The spiritual life is lived under the Buddha for the sake of extinguishment by not grasping. That means the last Visuddhi, right? That means Sila is not our purpose. Sila is the first carriage, horse carriage. But can you exclude it? No. If you skip the first horse carriage, you can't get into the second horse carriage. The idea here is that do not get ended up in the Sila. But you should practice Sila, thinking, go to the next horse carriage, next level. As you said, cultivating the mind is the next one. But it is also not the last one. There are a lot of things happening in our mind, our jnana, our magga, vision, ditti, lot of things happening after that. Then actually Punna Mantaniputta, Bhante Punna Mantaniputta explains this to Arhant Shariputta. He was very much happy about the answers, right? So that itself means Sila is the starting point, but not the ending point, right? So never ever end up in there. So for those people who end up in there, they have an influence from Attakilamathānuyoga, because when you only practice Sila without practicing the rest, you feel Sila itself is the only thing for me, I only do that. Then you will end up with the Silabbata Paramasa, which is a fetter, Sangyojana, that will not help you to attain Sotapanna. So all in all, what I was trying to say is that Attakilamathānuyoga is as you can see here, is dukkho. Primarily it's dukkho. Do you see dukkho in the Kāmasukallukāna yoga's definition? No, you don't see it. Is there dukkha here? He no gammo potujjaniko, no, there is no dukkha. Actually, Kāmasukallukāna yoga has no dukkha. But where is dukkha coming to Kāmasukallukāna yoga? After some time, right? After some time, you will face some dukkha. Let's say you are eating too much food, you are somebody who is too much attached to some of the taste, then now you are happy, but one day then you're going to pay the cost of that with the sickness. But Attakilamathānuyoga starts with pain, suffering, dukkha. It is more dukkha actually. More dukkha even at the starting level, beginning point. Then dukkha, anariya, anatta, sanghita. Actually, you can see another difference here. In the definition of Kamasukallikanuyoga, you see hina, gamma, potujjanika, 3 words. But here, before anariya, anatta, sanghita, here there is only one word before anariya, anatta, sanghita. Why? Lot of ascetics, lot of good people also start the path of liberation from Attakilamathānuyoga aspect. That is why it is. But it shouldn't be an Attakilamathānuyoga. It should be just a practice to understand your mind and then to proceed. All right, any questions? Now we're going to take the Q&A. You can go to that mic and then ask the question if you have. Were you able to learn something new today about Attakilamathānuyoga? Should be. Anything that you didn't understand, you need more clarification? Yeah. Now that means our sila is kind of tapo. But in our tapo practice, we don't torture our body. Has anybody trying to torture your bodies while you're practicing sila? If you cannot meditate on the floor, just go and sit down on a chair. Don't torture yourself. Some people torture. They can't stay, but if you want to try, just go try. But if you cannot, just go and sit down. This practice is not by force. If you cannot meditate while by closing your eyes, open your eyes. Like in the Zen meditation. In Zen meditation, they don't close their eyes. Their point is that if you close your eyes, you will go to many people. If you open the eyes, you only go to the certain number of people. They have a different argument about it. Right? If you close your eyes, you go to millions, billions of previous things. You go to your world. You open your eyes, you are here, they say. That is the argument. So whatever, Buddha never said close your eyes, only the back, upright back, and then the posture, yes, especially for the Anapanasati. Other meditations you don't need even posture. Whatever the posture you are in, you do your meditation, cultivating your wholesome things. I'm saying never ever torture yourself for the good things. For the good things, regard to sila or whatever the thing. Now there is a counter question. What is it? If so, then what about virya? We have to practice virya, right? Virya has a purpose also. Virya has a purpose. Our virya, what you call energy or effort, has a purpose. What is the purpose in effort? What is it? That is given in the Samma Vayama. That means you are trying to eliminate the existing akusalas. Use your virya to eliminate existing akusalas. And then use your effort, virya, to prevent any non-existing akusalas in you. You don't have it. You are not angry like your friend. Why do you want to be angry like that person? You are already good. You don't need to be influenced by that person, right? And then the third one is use your effort, I would say, virya, to develop your existing good stuff. You are a very good person, you are very kind, very compassionate, then try to hold on to that stage of your mind. You don't need to be changed by anybody. And then the fourth one is you need to use your virya to create non-existing kusalas that you don't have now. Let's say one of your friends is probably more patient than you, but you run into anger faster than that person. You learn that from that person. Why can't I do the same thing? I try my best today. Maybe you are somebody who can't forgive like your friend. You learn from that thing. So you are then using your virya effort to create that non-existing kusala. That is virya. Virya has a purpose too, like sila. If your virya has no purpose, then you are going to break the instrument, break that lute, like what happened with Sona. Right? The Buddha said, you have to be in the middle all the time. All right, seems no questions. That means, is it very clear to everybody? Don't be shy in the class. If you have any question, if you want to ask, go ahead. I'm super open to answer any question. If you have anything that you want to send me on a message, please send me too. I'm open to that too. All right. If you have no questions, we'll take one more minute. Please come over to the mic. Okay. Can you lower the mic? Yeah. Is it on? Turn the mic on. Okay.
Bhante, considering the contents on the ascetics, Brahmanism, anti-Brahmanism, and then at the end of the day, when we have this transference of merits to devas, being in a multicultural society, if we have to go to other religious houses, temples, how do we actually pay respect as a Buddhist?
To other people's ascetic practices?
Yeah. When we have temples, the gods that our friends consider as gods, are they the same as the devas that we refer to in Buddhism? And how do we pay respect to them if we are...
If you do not believe it, if you do not accept in your spiritual practice?
Whether we respect or do not respect. When we attend to their religious events, for example.
Good.
How do we actually... Because at the end of the day, we do transference of... we share merits with devas, right? So I'd just like to know, are these the devas that we are referring to? And how do we show our respect to them?
Okay. Very good question. So that means if you happen to go to a place of different gods, maybe your cultural practice, you might not accept in your spiritual practice, but how do we behave in that kind of a situation? So let's take metta practice that we do in our life. Do we agree with everybody in our life? Do we agree to everyone? Politicians, friends, family sometime. We may have different ideas, right? We may have different thoughts. But does that prevent us from not spreading loving kindness to them? No. Just because I might not agree, maybe I don't like it, but I still respect their humanity, right? They are beings, right? In that case, I think I would give you a nice story for that actually. There was one Deva came to see the Buddha and then said to him, Bhante, I am a different ascetic who passed away and now I am a Deva. I'm not a Buddhist ascetic. I'm a different ascetic, but I became a deva. Then he said the story to the Buddha, he disappeared. Early in the morning, Buddha said, this particular deva came, he was not Buddhist, but monks, you should learn this today. What does it mean? That means he was a very open person. He was not like rejecting other religious people. If there is something good, he certainly incorporated. So I think in that case, your culture, your such things, you should just go, as a cultural practice. But your spiritual journey is yours. Nobody is going to disturb your that practice. You just continue with that practice. But when you are in society, sometimes your mother, father, they might respect somebody else. So we have to go by them at that point, right? Maybe they are staunch so and so. We have to respect our mom and dad or maybe other people. But in our deep down heart, we have our own practice. So it should be okay. They are not in conflict. All right? All right, let's transfer the good karmas now. May all the good karmas that we have been accumulating today to this point of time be transferred to all the departed people, departed relatives. May departed relatives be well and happy, and finally attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti Sukhita huntu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. May all the good karmas be shared by all the devas, nagas and mahidikas. May devas, nagas and mahidikas be well and happy, and may they protect and bless all of you. Reverend monks, devotees, everybody over here. Not even you, but also your even grandchildren, everybody in your families. Be protected and blessed by the Deva, Naga, Mahidika for good health, quality of life and prosperity, safety. Especially may they help you develop, deepen your Dhamma understanding, end your spiritual journey one day. May Deva, Naga, Mahidika also be well and happy and finally attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavatacha ammehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya. Ittavatacha ammehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya. Ittavatacha ammehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bhummatta devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkang tuluka sasanang. Akasattha ca bhummatta devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkang tudesanang. Akasattha ca bhummatta devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkang tumang paranti chirang rakkang tutwang sadati. We're going to make a wish. May we be in the company of the Kalyana Mittas, noble friends, and not with the Papa Mittas who may deviate us from the path. Thinking thus, we're going to recite this stanza. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamu satang samagamu hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Finally, may all the good karmas which we've been accumulating to this point of time be supportive and helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana siddhis niccang vaddha pachayino chattaru dhamma vaddhanti ayuvannu sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati saminjatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. wishing you a good night, and then we'll see you next Monday. And once again, the announcement, if you are not receiving any messages through the WhatsApp group, Sutta Study, please add your phone number for WhatsApp in the sheet. And that's it. And let me know any questions if you have on WhatsApp too. Have a good night. And we will be studying about the Noble Eightfold Path starting from next Monday. The straight 8 factors.